Welcome, everybody. My name is Meg, and I am a professor in urban studies as well as resources and environmental management. And I'm very happy to be here to introduce the SFU City of New Westminster Urban Innovation Lab for the third iteration in 2015. So this session is designed to give you some information and to some tantalizing hints about what's waiting in store in this course for its third iteration. And so that's me. I teach urban studies. I've been here for 20 years, actually, talking about urban studies, sustainability, ethics, planning, city policy, urban policy. And I have an interdisciplinary education in public policy planning, urban geography, and pragmatic philosophy. And my co-instructor, who co-designed this course with me, Tiffany Muller-Meyerdahl, is on leave this year. So you're not going to meet her as an instructor, but her ethos will be throughout the course. So she has a lot of expertise in feminist pedagogy and community-based research, and so has been instrumental in designing really effective and engaging ways of teaching and assessment. And then to start off, we also have some inspirational words from Zoe Cohen, one of the undergraduate students who took the Urban Innovation Lab last year. So Zoe was one of the sort of pilot undergraduate students in this lab, and she, along with her one other undergraduate, sort of proved to the world that undergraduates could participate effectively, and together with her partner Zoe did a really interesting project that merged stormwater management and a storm sewer separation project in the city. So an effort to separate out the stormwater, the rainwater from the sewer water, into an opportunity for a rain garden, and how that rain garden could also serve a decolonization agenda. And Zoe, I just wanted to open it up for you to give some of your advice or thoughts for future students in the course.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'll just explain a little bit further my project to begin with, which was we were tasked with by our staff guides with trying to integrate reconciliation into capital projects. And so we spent a first 2 months, I would say, trying to figure out how that was going to be accomplished, because it was a pretty kind of large task to try to kind of piece apart and understand how we could be a part of a project that was already underway and had so much design choices already made and stuff like that. So that was a really interesting part of this course, was trying to work together with our staff guides, and along with, kind of because it was trying to further reconciliation work, what Indigenous communities have said that they want done within municipalities, and how they want to see reconciliation work carried out. So it was really interesting to try and kind of merge different people's agendas, and see how that would all work together. Yeah, this was, like Meg said, I was in my undergrad when I took this course. Still am, almost done. But yeah, it was by far my favorite class that I've ever taken, just because of how hands-on it was. It's definitely a very demanding course. There's a lot of time that I committed to this project, but I really enjoyed committing time to it because of how thought-provoking it was. Just, it was creative, and the work felt meaningful, and it felt needed as well, just because we were trying to accomplish things that the city of New West had said that they were interested in trying to achieve. And so it was really exciting to be able to work on a project that felt very practical, as well as taking things that we had learned academically and applying them. But it was a very practical project, in my opinion, which I really loved. And yeah, it was also really cool to learn kind of the inner workings of a municipality. I had never been exposed to information and careers and kind of parts of how people function within a municipality in that way before. So that was really interesting, and it was really cool to see kind of how to take a project from the conceptual phase and build on it until a point where we could present it, and kind of just what that process looks like a little bit, and then to finally present it in the charrette at the end of the year or the semester, to have all the feedback that was given to us was a really interesting process as well, just because, yeah, there were definitely things brought up that we hadn't considered, or just kind of learning how to explain the necessity of it in different ways. So it was a very interesting course, and I feel like I learned a lot from it just because of how immersive it is. So it's a very hands-on learning experience, and I would do it again if I could.
Cool.
I think that's it.
Yeah, thanks very much, Zoe. And I know that you've got a midterm to study for, so.
I do, but I hope you guys have a great night.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
And then we also are joined in this adventure by the City of New Westminster, and in particular, the inspiration of Lisa LeBlanc, who's the Director of Engineering at City of New West, but don't let that fool you. She's actually a very personable and person-oriented leader. And here's an example of I think this is probably out of date now, but it's the most recent one I could find on your website, Jen, you're smiling. There is part of the sort of what's going to be made clear to students in this course is what an org chart like this actually means in practice. In a busy municipality, New Westminster likes to think of itself as a city that has all of the same range of challenges and opportunities as the city of Vancouver, but it's a tenth of the size in terms of population, and maybe even less than that in terms of geography. But lots of big city problems with a lot of constraints in terms of space and staffing. And in order to sort of make the way that a city functions clear to students, we are fortunate to have a sort of a working group, which the membership of which evolves from year to year. And some of the members of this working group who are back for round 2, and in some cases stepping forward for the first time to work with the lab. So Jen, maybe you and those in the room there with you would like to introduce yourselves.
All right, I'm going to unmute. Brad's in the same room as me, so he's not going to unmute. We're just going to use our microphone to manage the tech. So I'm Jen Arbo. I use she, her pronouns. I'm working at the City of New Westminster for 6.5, 7 years, something like that. My current title is I'm the Supervisor of Community Partnerships, and that function sits in economic development, interestingly enough, and that is actually in a new department called Community Services. So on that org chart, Community Services is not there. And so Community Services is a new department that incorporated some of the functionality that was currently overseen by the Office of the CAO. So that would be economic development, business licensing, our cultural services, our heritage and museum services, and our conference services, as well as public engagement and corporate communications. And then mine, like I said, it's kind of incubating an ECDEV because there's an acknowledgement that the grants, volunteers, special events, and missing one, grants, film office, all have a contribution to play in economic development of the community. So I'm heading up that division with a few staff. Before that, I did work in ECDEV as an ECDEV coordinator, and I've been doing that for a long time, but I've participated quite a bit in strategy building for the city of New Westminster and some really unique projects. Ask me anything you want to know about public toilets. I just finished my master's on public toilets, and I'm pretty happy to talk about things around strategy building and systems thinking, and to sort of help support any of the students related to that. And I'm joined in my office right now. We've got Jeff here, who's from the fire department, right there. And then Brad as well, and he's going to introduce himself on his screen. Yeah, I'll hit mute and then you can.
There we go. Good to go. My name is Brad Davey, and I'm the Deputy Fire Chief. I've been with the city for 26 years. I am currently also seconded half-time out of the fire department, involved in a project at the City Hall that we're calling the Crisis Response Pilot Project that if you've been following New West, you might see has got a little bit of media attention. So that's, of course, not on the org chart either. I do want to comment, Lisa LeBlanc is also, she's listed there as the Director of Engineering in the City of New West, but she's actually now the acting Deputy CAO, so she's involved at that level. And I just want to point that out, that you can see that we're from the ground all the way to the top in terms of who's getting involved with the project within the City of New West. And that is how we operate as a city. We tend to have, we tend to be pretty vertical, and we have people that are at all levels of that. We operate horizontally, even though we tend to be quite vertical. We have people at all levels involved in the project. I have Jeff with me as well. Do you want to say your role?
My name is Jeff Romanek. I'm the acting assistant chief of the fire service. I've been working for the city of New West since I was 18 years old, so I've been around for years. So I have a lot of history, a lot of working practical knowledge of the city. I look forward to answering questions and coming up with creative ideas and looking at interesting projects. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm currently shadowing Matt here on the project. It's my first time, so I'm learning as I go as well. So I look forward to talking to everybody.
We jump into our projects, or we'll take anything else for. No, that's not.
Well, is that, are those, thank you very much. Nice to meet you, Jeff, and thanks a lot, Brad and Jen. I guess somebody who's been at the City of New West since they were 18, that's really a testament to the quality of the organization to keep you sticking around along. That's it's really impressive. And I've certainly really been impressed by the quality of teamwork that is on evidence, even though I know there's, with an organization, there's always a lot of personalities to deal with and people, jurisdictional issues and things where you know what needs to be done and you can't get it done. And really that's, this course is designed in part to understand city building and city maintenance and city governance, but it's also designed to understand the team dynamics and the leadership approaches and the ways in which different knowledge can come into play in order to solve complex problems. But I swear this is the most recent version of your org chart that's available on your website. Okay, so what is?
Yeah, we should make that a project. Somebody try and diagram what we're actually doing.
I think that will be an objective. Yes, we will have yeah. Because I remember Lisa was talking about changing it last time. Okay, so what is the Urban Innovation Lab? We intend for it to be a transformative initiative. So we are transforming the classroom and the way that student learning is treated in terms of putting students in a safe and a supportive way, but still putting students in a real world situation where you have the opportunity to contribute to the running of a city in a real way and address urban challenges that exist. And also from the city's perspective, to foster innovation through making connections with an outside group, including us. So we also work within the lab in order to ask challenging questions and to bring different units and different ideas within different facets of the city together. So it does have aspects of design and innovation, but it really is not sort of rooted in any particular philosophy about design. You're not expected to come here as a designer or with any kind of business acumen necessarily. It's really an interdisciplinary space where each year students bring their interests and their skills in order to provide opportunities for learning and solutions. So this is our effort in creating, on the one hand, an experiential learning opportunity. That means learning not just from proven theories and formulae and science, but also from your experience and learning how to take your experience seriously, as well as take your the professional exposure seriously, in terms of how it contributes to knowledge and how it contributes to knowing what practice could look like. To prove that learning and doing partnerships can work mutually, so we are also really striving to be a different kind of experiential learning opportunity that isn't taxing on our city partners, but where we have confidence that it is valuable for our city partners as well. And to grow meaningful, professional, reflexive, proactive relationships and cultures of innovation. So this will certainly provide an interesting professional development experience. We also sometimes have students who are already working in another municipal organization or in a consulting capacity, and this is a way for them to test whether things in their organization are operating effectively, or whether if there's a problem in one year it was the city of Vancouver, where it just didn't seem, you know, like things were organized appropriately to move on a particular challenge, and this proved a test bed for their practice as a professional as well. So it is a professional development experience, but it's also learning about innovation, and as cities change and the policy context has quite radically changed for cities in the local government, under the Local Government Act in the past year and a half. And we're going to be responding to that and figuring out how to be on the leading edge of practice in that too. So the work in the course is intensive, as Zoe said. It does involve more than your usual course in terms of the load of work, and that's why it's designated as having 6 credits rather than the normal 4 credits for a graduate course, or if you're an undergraduate, 9 credits as opposed to a normal 3 or 4 credit course. So you can think of it as a capstone kind of a course opportunity in terms of the level of work, or 1.5 times what you would sort of expect to spend doing the work to get it done. There's also quite a bit of effort that's placed on teamwork, and that includes building a professional relationship with your assigned guide, staff guide or staff mentor within the city, and then usually it's also work with classmates. So students then will have the opportunity to gain insights into the actual on-the-ground work of receiving a policy from city council or from provincial mandate and putting it into a context of a particular organization, particular leadership structure, specific organizational dynamics that are changing, and doing that in close engagement with City of New West partners. The types of practice that you will learn include the ins and outs of local and regional governance, what is required, what's allowed, where the jurisdictional space is, where the innovation space is, effective public management and what that looks like, how you get to a decision, where the research happens, where the engagement happens. And then some new policy priorities. So Jen already sort of alluded to some of the City of New West's progressive policy initiatives and priorities. I've just put down a couple here related to equity. The City of New West has its own unique diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism framework that in this course we're working to find new ways to apply beyond the theory. Truth and reconciliation is a major initiative for the City of New West. There isn't an active Indigenous First Nations reserve within the City of New West, and it is contested and probably shared territory by a number of First Nations as well as urban Indigenous peoples. And so that creates a particular context for moving towards truth and reconciliation. They've taken some bold steps in that direction, particularly in a year of truth, which was a designated time when the city's sort of dedicated staff to go through all of the historical council records to find all of the mentions of Indigenous peoples, and had the nerve to sort of put all of that mostly terrible material out to the public to sort of hold themselves to account as a first step. And community engagement. So the City of New West is one of a few pilots involved in a, what do you don't call it a citizens assembly, Jen, what do you call it?
It's the community assembly, community advisory assembly, actually.
So this is a new and innovative approach to public participation, recognizing that in many times, public participation processes are essential for democracy, but they're also broken. And so this is an effort to have a more representative sample. It's sort of like jury duty in effect, that you're being selected to participate in this assembly, where it's not on your pet project or your policy initiative that is like you really love dogs, or this is your thing as a person with a disability, but you are tasked with sort of being effectively a resident council on all matters that could be put before you. So there's some practice to learn from there. But the City of New West generally and historically, at least since, well, for a long time, let's say, has thought of itself as a council that wants to be on the progressive edge. And seeks ways to innovate beyond what the strict letter of the Local Government Act might say is permitted. Sometimes by necessity, historical reasons, and sometimes because of the passions of staff and council and residents. So the connection is a big part of this course. So we'll spend time both at the Vancouver campus here in class, but we will also spend quite a bit of time in the City of New West. We will have the opportunity to do walking tours. We will take part in council meetings. We will talk to the Chief Administrative Officer. We'll find ways to really sort of get familiar with the landscape of the city and of city government. And students, and within your student groups and with your staff guides, you will be tasked with scheduling a sort of an open doors session within the area of responsibility of the staff member or members that you're working with, and to engage your classmates in a sort of an exercise in figuring out what that area does and what it could do. So, I remember being invited to slide down the pole at the fire hall, for example. We all received a library card and learned just all of what that means. In one year, we were involved in an naloxone training. Some of those hands-on things can happen in this course as well. Learning about where the sewers are being replaced and where rain gardens are and are not possible. Charrette, so Zoe talked about the charrette at the end of the course. This is a term that is usually from architecture, but don't let that fool you. It just means a sort of a focused deadline opportunity to put all your best work on the table and to invite critique. And so we will again host an ideas charrette at the end of the course, and this will be your opportunity. Usually it's been in the council chambers, but during the day, staff have been invited, community members can be invited, and it is an opportunity both to showcase your work with the city and also to collect feedback, and think further about where your project might go next as it gets close to being ready to hit the ground. These have been pretty inspiring sessions and have created some, some germs of policy agendas to go forward as well. And then part of the professional development side is also your own individual portfolio of work. So you will have lectures and readings and discussions and guest lectures on aspects of urban leadership and urban management and innovation. And you'll be learning in different places as well on different topics, some of which are going to be quite unfamiliar to you and some of which might be more familiar. And so you're going to put together a sort of a portfolio of all of your notes and your records of that to make sense of it so that you can take that forward and you'll get some comments on that, and that will be part of your assessment for the course. Just some of the practical details. I mentioned that this is a 1.5 times a normal course in terms of the amount of time that you can expect to dedicate to it, and that's reflected in the credit count. We're going to meet here at Harbor Center 5:30 to 8:20 on Tuesdays, and then you can expect alternating Mondays and Tuesdays afternoons, Mondays or Tuesday afternoons, and or some evenings, because council meetings happen in the evening, whereas staff are available in the afternoon for workshops and open door sessions. So those we can work those out, and there can be some flexibility. Council meetings, for example, are live streamed, so that's a possibility in terms of participation, although it doesn't beat being in the room. And yeah, and that's about. So we can specify the specific important meetings once we get to January and the course starts. And then, of course, there's lots of planning, lots of teamwork, lots of reading, design of your project. You will prepare posters for the ideas charrette as well. Meetings. So the target audience then are people who are seeking to understand city government, to understand the link between policy, planning, and practice and theory. The people who are interested in finding out different job opportunities within city government and related, and people who are solution seekers who are looking for ways to make a difference in the challenges that you see probably around you in the city every day. There's also an emphasis on this concept of innovation, which I think is really interesting and very fraught, because often when we talk about innovation, we're like ignoring what's gone before us, just in the interest of doing something new and trying something different. That's not what I want to talk about when I'm talking about innovation. So we will approach that with a critical eye and try and figure out, how innovation can also be part of improving practice and improving relationships as we go. It's also kind of a very cool and unique opportunity to bring different, like what we consider policy areas together. So Zoe talked about, bringing culverts and colonialism together into a single project. That's not something that comes naturally to a lot of us, and it certainly doesn't come naturally in the academy in the way that we organize our studies, because you're supposed to only develop expertise by spending a lot of time thinking about one area of work. But as you just heard from staff, from Jen and Brad and Jeff at the City of New West, and as you heard here, the real solutions often come from playing different roles and bringing those insights together. Guest panels, open door sessions, walking tours, enhancing our own work as reflexive practitioners, and building on notions of transparency, relationship, and connections. So when you look at it in terms of the semester, we start out with sort of a preparation phase, and there will be like time in the classroom where there will be lectures and readings that we'll discuss together, as in a sort of the seminar style class that you're probably used to. We'll focus on topics including urban management, the theories of innovation, and key policy topics such as housing and economic development, emergency response. I know Megan Jones was interested in maybe the citywide archaeological study, so we might talk about decolonizing the city as well and how that fits in. So we'll cover some key urban policy topics. We will do an initial field observation, and so we'll talk about, you know, how to read the city, how to read the urban landscape, and then we'll go out and do it. We'll start with a guided walking tour so that you'll get a sense from someone who spent a lot of time thinking about managing space and structures and people in the City of New West. You will have a chance to meet staff and to get introduced to their work and what it looks like. Ask them questions. And then when we get into February and March, you will start to spend much more time working more independently within your groups and with your staff sort of attachment or with your staff guides to form your project, and to start doing additional meetings, additional research that might spur off from what we've been doing as a group. We will also have some guest lecturers come in to talk about specific topics that we really want to broach together. And we'll have those student hosted open door sessions with the staff guides. And then towards the end of the course, that's when we really get into planning for the charrette. So this will be you as students who will be planning the details of how to engage attendees in your ideas, what questions to ask, how to really solicit the kinds of advice that you need to move the project forward. And then you will be putting all of your projects together along with your portfolio of notes and observations. And it'll be a fun ride. So I think I brought a few project examples in the next few slides. This is a snapshot of the project that Zoe worked on. So here you can see they got, they started out at the high level of thinking about the rationale in terms of water management and infrastructure management for the sewer separation project. The actual process that the City of New West went through in order to apply for the funds to go through the long process of separating the sewers and the stormwater. And then the research that they did into rain gardens within green infrastructure, and then from an Indigenous perspective as well. And then they actually got right down to the nitty-gritty of designing a prototype decolonizing rain garden, working with Megan Jones and George Otieno from the engineering department. And they were able to really put this to the maintenance staff and to see exactly what their concerns or their critiques might be of where to place this, what species to plant, how it would be watered, whether how much maintenance these things would require. And we saw some pretty good examples, I think, for those of you who were here over the weekend, of what happens when the water infrastructure fails. So, I think that the rain gardens in Vancouver held up pretty well, actually. There's a new one on St. George Street between 5th and 7th, and it managed the water pretty well. Here's another example of a project. So New Westminster has a major new public facility. It's called Tumasout. It's an aquatic and a community center. So a huge investment for a small city, and has to serve the entire city. So there's been a lot of effort put into making this the right, an opening up and an inclusive space, which means people have to know how to get there, and people have to know that they're invited, and people have to know how to find out about the programs that meet their interests. Like many communities in the Lower Mainland, New Westminster is full of newcomers, not all of whom have, a history in the last place that they lived of what a community center is, what it's for, and they may not think that it's for them. So there's both a very physical sort of challenge that this group took on in terms of actually getting people figuring out what signage might look like in order to let people know from the bus and from different places in the sidewalk and how to approach the facility. It's a little bit out of the way for historical reasons. It's not obvious that when you arrive at New West Station that there's this amazing new facility. And then there's the sort of the more human side of wayfinding, which is how to provide an inclusive invitation to the facility, regardless of language or age or ability. Opening that up, including through the way that the invitation is made. There were some thoughts here about like how to reserve certain kinds of programs for certain populations, rather than the experience that people like me who have tried to register children in swimming lessons, for example, know that it's only the most on the ball parent who's actually able to secure a spot through the online reservation system. But how do you do it differently? How do you actually open these spaces up? So that was a project that brought together then some public engagement work, as well as parks and recreation priorities. This is a project that Jen was involved with to think about the parklets program. So probably you've heard about parklets as very mini parks that are usually designed sometimes in a very temporary way, sometimes in one or maybe two street parking spots, in order to provide a place of repose, sometimes a place of engagement as well with particular activities or things to learn. But more often than not, a parklet has become a sort of a default seating area. And sometimes it is considered to be more sort of belonging to a restaurant that might be nearby. And it's not necessarily clear that these are open to the public. So this group really tackled that challenge about how to redesign the parklet strategy in order to make them more fair and more open to different kinds of users and different kinds of uses. Can you do that through design? Can you do that through relationship building? Can you do that through the way that they are sited? How are your parklets doing now, Jen?
I was actually just saying to Brad, we just took a parklet out. We had to take it out for sort of construction infrastructure because they're designed to be temporary. Nobody ever thought about it when it was installed, 7, 8, 10 years ago, and was made from all wood, that it might need some maintenance. So I think this project was great because we also had parks and engineering operations staff come to the charrette, and they, were able to look at that rendering that this group put together, and they flat out said like, that is very difficult to maintain because it exposes the worker to the traffic on the other side of that fencing. And so how are we supposed to, do parks maintenance, and that tree will never survive, and blah, blah, blah. So this was a really good example, especially considering where this group started from was not this project at all. And they really, really finally got to a place. But yeah, parklets are interesting because nobody really knows who owns them or who maintains them or how much they cost, and yet they all exist.
And I'm pretty sure it's because of Jen that they do exist in the city, so that's been,
It's because of Erica Mashik. I will say that. It's because of Erica
yeah.
Mashik. I just keep pushing them.
I think. And then the final project is one that I was hoping, Brad, you might want to say a little bit about. So this was a group that worked with the fire department and in its crisis response mode to look at, because the fire department was facing a lot of calls for overdose response without any ability, because of privacy restrictions, to reconnect with people post overdose in order to provide them options for care.
Yeah.
So Brett, did you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure, yeah, this is a, oh, are you muted? Yeah, good. Yeah, this is a project where there's a population of people that the Minister of Mental Health Addictions and wants to reach out to. A lot of people in this population are the people at highest risk for passing away. And within the project, one of the challenges that we need a lot of help with was to try to actually be able to use the information we had acquired from emergency response records to make contact with these people to introduce supports for them to reduce the risk of a future overdose. And what was quite unique about this project was the group was given this initiative to work on this initiative, and they came back with a lot of direction and ideas that we hadn't considered, and that we weren't headed down that path. And these ideas were quite novel in the sense that it would reduce the involvement for the fire department in terms of accomplishing the same outcomes, and would actually enhance the privacy, because it would allow the participants or candidates for the potential project to make those connections in some cases without the fire department's involvement. So it was quite good. And we took that information afterwards, because the time was limited. We took that information afterwards to a couple of apps that their idea, and both companies that we took it to seemed interested in following up with it. One just didn't have the finances for the R&D because they were a nonprofit type organization, and the other one at the time said they were quite interested in it because it would take some R&D from the technical side to implement it. And looks like the way they were talking is they were going to carry it forward. They haven't done so yet, so now I'm not sure if they're actually going to or not, but they seem positive. But this was something that was completely driven by the student group that we hadn't even considered here within the city.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, so I'm not going to go through all of the mumbo jumbo about my instructional goals for students in this course, but just to know that this course really does embrace a spectrum of types and approaches to learning, and I hope that that's clear, that there is an emphasis on a whole range of different ways of learning, and the importance of all of these coming together. Gonna switch through these because I want to get to your questions as well. But it's been, yeah, I think that if anything, probably the message from these slides is just that this has been a really fun experience and a really powerful experience too. We've had a great time together. And New West is a really interesting size. Like the size is kind of limited, restricted enough that I think within a semester, students do feel like they have a chance to get to know it, get to know the city through this intensive course experience by the end of them. So my understanding, and Jen and Brad, you might have some updates on this, but my understanding is that this is sort of maybe the slate of people who might be willing to work with the lab this time around. And essentially what happens is we sort of pull together the team, and then through the city staff team then is meeting behind the scenes, and we're trying to scope out some possible projects so that by the time the students arrive in January, you have at least some options that are sketched out for you in terms of the area of urban practice, the possibilities in terms of the staff guide and their priorities for within their involvement in the lab that they would like to engage with. And then, like I said, what we tried last year and what I'd like to try again this year was pairing the staff guides together so that the student groups are each working with 2 staff guides who may come from different departments. And so they're providing complementary expertise and access to knowledge about different aspects of city works. So even though you won't be necessarily working with all of these people, there will be opportunities to engage with the other dimensions of the city for special conversations, right? So the chief administrative officer in the city, for example, has been willing to share some time and wealth of experience and just like what it takes, what's changed in the city and what it takes to run it now compared to 20 years ago, or a conversation about city finances and to answer questions about budget. Or one question that's become, really rife within urban governance lately has been ethics, right? And what happens when there's a question mark about whether a decision or an action has been ethical or not. So we'll have opportunities to ask specific questions like that to specific members of the team. I mean, another question that's always on students' mind is, well, how do you get hired? And so we'll have a chance to talk to the HR department about, how a hiring process works from their end of things too, to think about those to think about how to market yourself effectively and how to think about presenting yourself in a way that makes you attractive for the job that you want. So students, we ask them what they think the value of this course is that's different from another course that you might take, and what recommendations that they have for other students getting involved in something like the lab for the first time. And they say, here's a list of tips and recommendations that we've received, that you get to pay attention to how different departments value collaboration and creative problem solving. There can be obviously lots of pressures to not want to collaborate and not be creative, because after all, the workload can be overwhelming and it can seem like a drag on time. But there are still ways to place a value on collaboration and teamwork and being creative. The opportunity to emphasize the significance of public engagement and in new ways, and building trust within the community and thinking about that relationship between City Hall staff and urban residents and community members. The effectiveness of including individuals with lived experience in decision-making processes. To be prepared for the challenges of balancing diverse needs and wants in public decision-making. That's a hard thing for students to swallow when they're in the classroom and they realize what the right decision is based on theory and based on mistakes of the past, and then you get into a job situation and there isn't consensus about that. And so trying to how to cope with that. the fact that communities need long-term sustainable strategies, not just quick fixes. To recognize the importance of curiosity and open-mindedness. Acknowledge the complex and the group-oriented and ever-evolving processes of city making. To make a case for continuous learning and adaptation in public services. To figure out the ethics of an engagement process. And to think through what it means to decolonize systems and embed lived experiences. So that is, yeah, that's what I wanted to convey about the lab. Jen, Brad, did you want to add anything?
This is, oh, sorry. This is sort of throughout the presentation, but I just want to emphasize, when you look back at the diverse group of leads, I guess, that we had involved in the project, and I think it was mentioned that sometimes these leads are from different departments and work together. Well, when we're within the city, we do require a lot of interdepartmental work and a lot of interdepartmental collaboration. That's one of the things I think that we bring, or we try to bring to the project that can bring a lot of value, is that with the diverse leads, there is also diverse opportunity for lots of different project types. But even within that project type that you're involved with, you're going to have to touch, at least conceptually, maybe in the lab, you won't be able to get involved with all the other departments at the level you would operationally because of the time constraints, but at least conceptually, you'll have to get involved with what the project you're involved with touches those other departments. And I think that's something that was maybe not quite as obvious in the slides that happens, that I just sort of wanted to bring to the front.
Yeah, it's been quite amazing actually to see your involvement. For example, Brad, you didn't actually really introduce yourself in terms of the range of background that you have. But Jen, you also spoke a little bit to some of the different roles. But yeah, the ability of the ability to see these cross-departmental relationships and willingness to work together is it does stand out for sure.
I think this urban lab also gives a really great opportunity to understand municipal government. So the city of New Westminster is this, tiny little 14 square kilometer community in the heart of Metro Vancouver. When I moved here, there was 35,000 people. There's now approaching 90,000, and it'll be soon 120,000. We're one of the most dense communities in the entire country. We love to write policies and strategies, and some of them are long-term and some of them are at odds with one another. And some of them are politically motivated and get dropped and picked up depending upon what the flavor of the day is for innovation or, new concepts or what we think the community wants. I think this lab is a great opportunity to kind of get a little bit of a look behind the scenes in a way that you might not if you were partnering with a large community, that I think you said it, Meg, that, with the city of Vancouver, it's huge and it's absolutely mammoth and there's lots and lots of departments, but this gives you the opportunity to I can actually tell you who you need to talk to if you want to know about this very niche component of the project. I can actually get you an email address and the person's name, and whereas in other communities that might not be the same experience. And I think from a staff perspective, we also really enjoyed being able to participate in this. It's kind of nice to get outside of the box of the work that we do every day and to connect with colleagues that perhaps our work doesn't cross paths with a lot, but does cross paths with enough to, to sort of have those connections. So it's certainly an interesting way to experience it in sort of a more scaled down version that does make it work for a term and not be so overwhelming that it's, not doable.
And I realized that there's one other person that I wanted to introduce you to, especially for City of New West staff. So I don't know how I'm gonna know if you can see this person. I'm gonna have to stop sharing to actually. So wave, Alex.
Big room, only a few.
So this is Alex Duran, and she is a PhD student who's going to be working with me on the lab. And so you're gonna meet her at the November 8th meeting.
Nice to meet
Okay, questions? Do you have any questions that are burning? Otherwise, feel free to. Yeah, get in touch.
Actually, survey, how many students are part of this intake?
So I was just gonna say, so it is registration by permission. So if you're interested and you have questions about, timing would be one thing that always comes up. You could check with Brian, at urban@sfu.ca. You can also check with me, so Holden at sfu.ca. And we like to keep the course fairly small in order to make sure that there's, a good ratio with staff and instructors. So we've tried to keep it to about 12 to 16. But yeah, the permission is really just to make sure that you understand what you're getting yourselves into. So it's not necessary, I'm not gonna check your grades, I'm just going to, or quiz you or anything like that. I just want to know that you're able to commit to there's travel. Of course, City of New West is more accessible by transit than anywhere else in the region, because of the number of SkyTrain stations, but you do have to be willing to get out there a number of times and to engage in that. And there's relationship building, so it's a different kind of work that you need to put into the course as well. Great, well, thank you very much.